All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's now 1 p.m. Eastern. Welcome everyone. My name is Patrick Rennie, and I am going to be one of your hosts today for the webinar that we have called You Have CTC Civil 3D Tools. Now, how do you use them? I'm joined today by Jay Kwon, who is one of our Civil 3D technical consultants. He and I both work to help Civil 3D users ease their day-to-day through better practices with the use of our add-on tools, alleviating redundant tasks, as well as cutting down on hours of manual work. Jay is going to be running through the technical part of the presentation today, and I will be here to facilitate any questions that come up during the presentation. For today's agenda, I'm going to start off by doing a brief discussion or brief talk about who SolidCAD is and who CTC is. And then Jay is going to take over by going through the sheet production tools, corridor tools, and grading tools of the CTC Civil 3D platform. We are going to try and leave some time at the very end as well for some Q&A. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, we'd encourage you to use the chat box feature in the Zoom meeting here for those questions, or at the very end, we'll field anything else that might have come up. So SolidCAD. SolidCAD has been your authorized Canadian reseller of Autodesk products for over 25 years. Today, we are the single largest platinum partner of Autodesk products in Canada. In 2017, we merged with Cancel to form a nationwide operation called SolidCAD, a Cancel company. As part of the Cancel group of companies, we have continued to help our clients with workflows and product solutions to keep you well ahead of the latest technological advancements, as well as improving your field to finish productivity. SolidCAD specializes in providing solutions for the architecture, engineering, construction, civil infrastructure, manufacturing, and plant industries. Now, Jay and I are both on the infrastructure team. So in terms of the infrastructure side of the SolidCAD umbrella, we offer a variety of different services, including training, consultation, and assessments, as well as optimization improvements to ensure that you are getting the most out of your software investment and streamlining your day-to-day work. We also frequently host webinars like this one to showcase the latest and greatest technology in the space to make sure that you are up to speed with what's happening in the industry. With respect to training, our training facilities and offices are located across the country. Given the current climate of things, all of our training engagements have currently moved to virtual until further notice, but we do look forward to seeing you in a classroom when it is appropriate. Our dedicated technical support team are on standby, ready to assist you at any moment in all time zones and in both official languages. Now, in terms of CTC, CTC software is at the forefront of advanced productivity tools and worldwide leaders in BIM technology. They're a member of the Autodesk Developer Network and have been working on tool sets for both the Revit and Civil 3D products since 2010. These tools are used by over 40,000 users worldwide and are in the top 75% of firms in the United States alone. SolidCAD is committed to providing our clients with industry-leading solutions such as CTC, and we're excited to show you how we can help with this new tool set. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free, again, to use the chat box available, and we'll facilitate any of those questions after Jay's presentation. And with that, let's get started. Jay, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Okay, so I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see my Civil 3D screen.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good, awesome. Now, yeah, so and maybe you've heard about the CTC tools. Maybe you've downloaded the trial, given it a quick spin, but haven't had that much time to look into it. We just wanted to go over a few of our favorite tools and a few of sort of good examples of workflows that you can do with them. Now, we're going to cover several tools, so it's I'm going to be going pretty fast. So it's sort of like an how-to, but in the sense that it's something that you can maybe play back and take a look at the steps that I'm taking. But mostly I just wanted to communicate to you certain things that you can do with them, how it'll benefit you, and sort of roughly how it is used. Okay, so first of all, I'll start with let's talk about so 3 general parts we're going to talk about. So sheet production, that's going to involve some labeling, sheet generation, maybe some legends and quantity tables, that kind of thing. We'll also take a look at corridor design work. So some corridor mapping that we're going to take a look at, as well as splitting and merging corridors, which is always a pain, but much easier with this tool. And also we'll just wrap things up with the Autograder tool, which is one of the most powerful tools in the suite. And we'll take a look at how it can speed up some grading tasks. Okay, so let's take a look at the label Genie first. So, okay, well, I have some feature lines here in this commercial site. Maybe I want to label some spot elevations. Normally, I would have to sort of select the feature line and then just do a spot elevation vertex by vertex manually, which can take quite a bit of a time, right? So let's see how we can speed that up. So I'll fire up label Genie. All right, so first thing that I'm gonna, well, briefly, I'll just take a look. I'm not gonna deal with any external references, even though I can label through external references. I can limit it to certain layouts, but I'm not gonna do that either. Just to keep things simple today, we'll just go with everything in the current drawing. Let's take a look at a spot elevation. And then we're going to select the anchor object, which is, well, where are we going to put the spot elevations on? So I'll select feature lines. Now you can select what feature lines get labeled fairly easily. I'll just click on this dot button. Basically, you can just do a filter. I'm going to do a layer filter. Basically everything on a certain layer. Now, I don't remember the name of the layer. I'm going to do the edge of sort of asphalt in this parking lot, but I don't remember the name of the layer, but that's okay. I'll just click on this button, click on the line, and then it'll just kind of grab that name. And it's showing that it's basically grabbed 6 feature lines that's on that layer, and that's fine with me. Okay. And then basically, where do I want the labels to show up for these spot labels? So I'm going to want them on basically every vertex. So I can choose different anchor points, but I'm going to choose the vertices. And for the vertices, there's a bunch of different choices I can make, but I'm going to choose the top sort of 8 or so. That's going to make sure that I get the beginning and end of every sort of segment, basically capture every vertex. Okay, and last thing is where are these elevations coming from? Take a look at that. Again, same kind of thing. I'll just filter it by the object name. So I sort of have a pre-grading grid. So I'll just type in, you can do a wildcard search too, by the way. So yeah, so it did find one surface having that name, and then I'll just simply add the labels. So it's saying it's going to add 62, and okay. So at that point, it added a bunch of elevation labels, and maybe all I need to do is sort of reposition them, kind of thing, just for clarification, or just to get things out of the way, you know. Now that's 64 labels. That's a lot faster to just get it done that way than to have to click on each vertex, basically using the standard tool. that comes with Civil 3D. Well, what else can we do? How about we'll label the slope, slopes between these straight segments. So I'll run the label Genie tool again. I'm gonna do, yeah, let's flip that over to a 2-point slope. So basically in the direction, the slope in the direction of the line. And then for as far as where, like what the object that I'm labeling, I'm gonna keep it the same. So the edge of the asphalt feature lines. As far as the anchor points go, it is gonna be segments. And I just want to take care of the lines at this point. I'm going to ignore the curves for now. It's going to be the same surface, so I'll just leave that alone as well. And then I'll just click Add and Update Label. So it's going to go ahead and label every segment, straight segment, with the slope label. Again, I might want to sort of move things around, do a little bit of cleanup, but the labeling is there essentially. Okay, so what else can we do? One last thing, there's tons of things, but I'm gonna have to limit myself to just a handful of things. I'll fire up the label Genie again. How about we'll label the vegetation that's there, these trees. Let's say these are new, these are being planted, and we want to just label their names. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I will use, we can use multi-line text, multi-leader, but well, I'll use multi-leader. And then the anchor objects are going to be the blocks that represent these trees. So I'll select which ones get, I'll just kind of have it previously set up and from a testing session, but I'll do it over. Backspace everything and start grabbing things from here to grab everything on those layers. So everything on that layer. I'll grab some of these shrubs too, everything on that layer. And everything on this layer as well, a different type of tree. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be labeling 50 objects by the looks of it, which is fine. The anchor point is going to be the origin or the insertion point. And it's going to be on the plan view. Now I can do profile and section view as well. So I'm not just limited to plan labeling, but for today's purpose, let's just stick with plan. Okay, so, all right, we chose what's going to be labeled. Now, what's going to be the content of the labeling? So let's take a look at the formatting. And from here, a bunch of things over here, but I'm just going to clear all that out and just add the block's name. And so I'm just going to leverage the name of the block. And if I want to name it any different, I'll just adjust the block name. Now, if you want to add any custom things to it, you can. There's a custom text field where you can type out anything. You know, maybe it's some kind of a reference number or whatever it might be. So you can type that in here. Anything that you want to type in, but for now, let's just keep things simple. I'm just going to hit the delete key to get rid of that. Lots of other things you can choose. The case, what layer those multi-leaders go on, the rotation, how far it's offset from the origin, that kind of thing. I'm just going to use a default that I have right now and hit add or update labels. So 50 labels. And there we go. So there's a multi-leader on every tree. Now, these block names haven't been they're not very descriptive, but if I rename those block names and then just did a regen, these are fields, so they would update, right? So, but I'll leave that alone. So just a handful of labeling tasks that you can speed up quite a bit. There's much more. By the way, for any of these tools, just go over, I'll just start this tool up. For any of these tools, it's really easy to get more information about them. So first of all, you can see quick videos with the video link. That will pop up sort of like a website where you can get more information on how to use that tool. There's also a help file. So it's a fairly complete PDF help file that shows all the detailed options that you would see in the menu. So if you wanted to dive in deeper, it's all right there, and it'll automatically skip you to that section for that tool in this document. Okay, and and one final thing, anytime you want to update to the latest update, you can just hit the About button, and there's a download link right here. And you can also report bugs and features. So everything is right there. Makes it really easy for you to take it further. Okay, so let's take a look at, that's enough for labeling for now. Let's take a look at sheet generation. So one of the Civil 3D comes with sheet generation tools. So in the Output tab, we have create view frames, create sheets, create section sheets. What that does is automatically chops up, let's say, an alignment into multiple sheets. And it's a great time-saving tool. The only problem is that it doesn't really let you adjust things. So basically every view frame, so every plan view area, it has to be the same size. You're pretty limited in the way that you can sort of shuffle them forward or back. And if you want to shuffle them forward and back, you kind of have to add a buffer, which means that every view becomes even smaller. So if you ever given that a try, you'll probably notice that. And if you ever want to, even if you generate a sheet set and then you want to go back and make adjustments, you can't really change it. You have to sort of nuke the whole thing and start over as far as sheet generation. So that gets addressed by the sheet generator tool. So let me just go ahead and get the process started with the plan view shapes. So the first task is to basically outline what each sheet is going to show, and that's this plan view shapes tool. So I'm going to go right from the beginning of the alignment to the end of the alignment. I'm going to make sure that it's centered. Let's go to the next screen. I'm going to set it to like 320 meters length for each view. It's kind of designed for, it's designed for a certain scale, I think for like 1 to 500 scale roughly, for sort of like a architectural D or NCD sheet. But let's go ahead and just finish that up. I'll just finish. So it generated the V shapes and the match lines. Now, the biggest difference between this tool and the out-of-the-box tool is that these V shapes, it's not like a specialized V-shape object that the out-of-the-box tool has, meaning it's a lot more flexible. This is just a polyline on the layer. You can adjust it. You can adjust it to any shape that you want, right? And it'll basically, you can move it, any place you want. You can shrink things. You can make them basically you can make them different sizes. And anytime you want to sort of adjust them globally, all you need to do is just run the tool again. And let's say, instead of doing 320, I just wanted to do 300 per sheet. You can just run it again and it'll just adjust kind of thing. All right, so once you get that going, so there are other tools that sort of support the process. Let me just quickly go through that. I'll just quickly generate the profile views for these plans. That is just out of the box multiple profile view. That's not really the CTC tool part. It's out of the box tool, but it's included in there for convenience. And then there are some pipe networks. We can just throw that on there with the network to views. So we can throw all of them on there at once. So you basically don't have to do it one profile view at a time. And it also lets you sort of limit it to a certain distance. Right now it's 30. So starting from, the baseline, which is like the alignment, you can limit it to, okay, 30 meters out from that on both directions, that kind of thing. I'll leave it at 30. Okay, so all of those pipes are in there, which is good. And then next, it's just a matter of generating some view shapes for the profile. So the very first step, we determine what area is going to show on plan view. Now we need to show what area is going to show on the profile view. And we'll just run this tool, profile view shapes, and we'll run it on all the profile views. And we'll just run it so that it's centered on the profile view. And there are other options, but we'll go with the simplest option. And these are just what layer is being used and what block is being used for what. That's fine. You usually have to set this all up just once, and you don't have to think about it. So I'll generate those views. So, some of them might need a little bit of adjustment. That is also very easy. You can just use a polyline. You can just move them. Here, I'll just move move this a little bit. There we go. So it's just working with lines almost, right? You can definitely just, or I can just mass adjust them as well. If I just run it again and just choose a different setting. But for now, I'll just leave it alone. And at this point, I can just create the layouts. So maybe I'll just get that going. So again, most of these settings, once you set them, you don't really have to think about them. Then you just pick and choose which sheets that you want. I'll just choose, well, maybe I'll just choose a handful, because maybe I'll just choose the first 3 just for the sake of running time. Okay, so there we go. And one last thing that you need to do is basically specify what sheet set it belongs to. So you're going to have to sort of create a sheet set first. Just using the out-of-box tools. Doesn't take long, and then just go ahead and finish. So you can save the new view or new layouts into, basically you can save it all into one drawing, or you can split them up by, set a limit, have like 3 or 4 per drawing, that kind of thing. Essentially, I chose to pick the high enough number that it's all going to be on one drawing. Okay, so I think that's almost done. There we go. And let's just open the drawing and take a look. All right. Okay, actually, I have one previously generated, so I'm not sure which is which. I'll just open it right from the sheet generator. Okay. So there we go. So we have we have the drawings generated. And now the other thing is, if you ever need to make a change, so let's say you want to change the rotation, maybe lengthen some, shorten some. All you need to do is just go back to the source drawing. Where is that one? Right there. All you need to do is just like for example, let's take a look at this one, right? All you need to do is just go back to the source drawing. It's kind of lagging. Give me a sec here for my computer to catch up. Yeah, you can just adjust the polyline. So the red block represents where in the sheet your plan view would land. So you can kind of position it that way. The cyan line controls how much of it is showing, and you can just adjust that with this polyline, right? So you can set it to whatever you want. And then all you need to do is just run update layouts, and it will basically update this new sheet that got generated to match. So for time's sake, I'm not going to do the update right now. We're going to go right over to the data wizard tool. But well, you can see how easy it would be to just update your sheets. You don't have to scrap it altogether and start over if you happen to drop a sheet, for example. Okay, so let's take a look at legends and tables, for example. All right, I'm going to go into this drawing that I worked on earlier, where we did some labeling. So then I'm going to flip it over to sort of like a layout. Okay, so it seems to be, okay, there we go. Got control back. Keep losing control in the drawing. I think I have a Windows update in the background that's sort of giving me some issues, but we'll try to get through it as best as we can. Okay. All right, so we have a drawing like this. So the tool that we're going to take a look at now is the data wizard. So what is that tool good for? So that's good for generating legends, basically making tables of possibly the legend. We can do quantities as well. We'll take a look at both scenarios. All right, so I'll go ahead and fire up that tool, set up table. Okay, it's going to be the current drawing. Again, you can do external references, and again, you can limit it to certain layouts, but we'll go with the simple setup. Just go with the current drawing. Next, what kinds of things we're going to put on our table? I'll go ahead and put blocks, feature lines, which most of our sort of parking lot lines are generated from. Hatching, so the hatching that's showing different areas, and some polylines. So wherever feature lines are not being used, there are some polylines that we can put on a table that are being displayed in the drawing. So I'll just go next. So here on the next menu, we can choose what kind of data to extract. So let's take a look at that. Right now I have graphical representation, layer description, area, 2D length, count. Now this setup is good for sort of legend, or not legend, quantities, but I want to set up a legend table. I want to basically make a table that says this block means this and this line means this. So for now, I'm going to turn off the quantity related ones. I'll just go with the graphic and the layer description. So I'm using layer description because it's a good place where I can just put in whatever description I want that's suitable for the legend. Most people don't have, you know, the layer descriptions populated, but if you do, you can use other things as well, but this is what we're going to use for now. So by other means, I mean additional data. And additional data includes property sets, object data, X data. So if you rely on those other extra information, can definitely tap into that. For now, I'll just go with the simple setup and use a layer description and go next. And here we can choose sort of like the appearance of the table, right? So are we going to have a title? Sure, I'll just call it legend. Oops. For a legend table, I'm going to omit the headers. Then we're going to have some settings as far as the height of the rows, width of the columns, sort of like the scales of different items. And here we can sort of control which column appears in which order just by clicking and dragging. Now I do want the graphic on the left and the description on the right, so I'll leave it at this setup. We can export this into an Excel, but I'm going to keep it simple and just export it into an AutoCAD table. And I'll go ahead and click on finish here. And just pick the table insertion point. Okay, so that should only take a few seconds more. So essentially it's grabbing all the lines, hatches, blocks, and just making a legend out of that, right? And this is a lot, and it's taking what's being used directly from the drawing. So you don't really have to think about, you know, is my legend out of date? Is it matching up with what I have in my drawing? If you're not sure, all you need to do is just hit the update table button and just click on this and it will update itself essentially. So just go okay. And it's going to update itself if you do that. So if you make any changes to your layers or your hatch patterns or anything at all. Same thing, I noticed that I don't have the layer description filled in for a couple layers. So if I filled it in and updated that, now I won't show that. Let's just go to the, maybe generating some quantity tables. So I'll run the tool again. And let's go ahead to the next screen. And then, so same objects. Then I'll go ahead and go to the next thing here. All right, so here, let's go back and just add some additional data to generate. So I'll go ahead and add maybe area, 2D length, and count. So the count, whatever property it applies to, so its count is going to apply to the blocks, 2D length to the feature lines and polylines, and area to the hatches. Okay, so I have that. Let's go next. So here I'll change it to quantities. And this time I'll show the headers so that we know what column means what. And maybe I'll just rearrange a few things. So I'll show the count items first, and then the length items for next, and then area items last. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and hit finish. That should be all we need. And I'll click over here, and that should pop up in a few seconds. Okay, so there we go. Now, this table is not real-time dynamic, but it is anytime you make an adjustment in the drawing itself, all you need to do is just run that update table tool again. Just takes a few seconds, it just grabs that table and just updates it so that it reflects the latest numbers as far as count, 2D length, and area. So almost real-time dynamic. Basically, it's just, you know, it's basically just kind of like hitting a regen by running that command, update table command. Okay, so let's go ahead and take care of some of the design tools. So corridor mapper, let's take a look at that. corridor design. Yeah, let's work with this drawing. Okay. So anytime you have a complex road project, there's a lot of target mapping going on, both offset and elevation, and this tool is great for that. If you ever need to just mass reset all targets, just clear them all out, there is a corridor cleanup tool right there. And that's essentially what I ran on this drawing, so that it cleared out all the targets. So I can sort of show you how I can reset it all very quickly. So just to give you a little bit of background on that, on this drawing. So we have a corridor with a lane that has a target. So the lane is going to target this offset alignment that's sort of weaving in and out depending on the situation. We also have a boulevard target. So that's going to be sort of what the edge of the sidewalk is going to be targeting. We also have a right-of-way target that's going to be targeting sort of like what we're using as a base, basically a daylight line in the assembly. And there's also a part where there's also a little line representing where the intersection is, so that we can just use one region and then just use a target mapping to cut out the right sort of everything beyond the lane, just cut that out in this section going through. So a few things we got going on there. So let's just set those real quick. So I'll run Corridor Mapper. Now it is sort of like the new corridor mapping interface that Solid3D picked up recently, but it's much more flexible. So for example, what sub-assemblies do I want to set this for? First of all, I'll just set a target, or I'll just set up a filter. Actually, before that, let's go take a look at the surface. For this corridor, I don't really have any daylights that are looking for surfaces. This corridor kind of targets existing right away for elevation and offset. But if I had them, I can set them here for all of them. So just choose all the sub-assemblies and just pick a surface. One neat thing is that you can set a default so that every time you create a new region with a new assembly, for example, it'll automatically add that surface as a surface target, and you don't have to do that manually, which always we end up having to do. But for now, let's set this up. So for lane, I'll do a search for lane sub-assemblies. I think it just starts with lane, maybe. Okay, it is exactly lane. All right. So it does have wildcards. Now for that, I'm going to select all that, and I can target by layer in case of polylines, by style in case of feature lines and alignments and things, or by object name and description and that kind of thing if I really needed to get granular. But I'm going to choose, let's go with style, because for the lane target, we have offset alignments. And yeah, so it's gonna have, let me just do a search for offset. I think it just starts with offset actually. Yeah, all right. Or it's exactly offset. So you just have to put a check mark on it, and you'll notice that as I put a check mark on it, it'll show me that that sub-assembly is going to select those offsets. So it's just going to select, it's showing 4, but it's basically going to target the one that applies, right? So it's going to automatically filter itself, and that's fine. Now next, we're going to have, we have a conditional sub-assembly intersection, and that is going to target a layer called intersection. that's a little polyline that's marking out where the intersection is. And basically we're going to say, well, actually, I'm just going to be a little bit more targeted about that. So it's going to be full road on the right-hand side, and it's going to be on the intersection right lane. And finally, there are driveway cuts. So you can sort of see these driveway cuts. So there's horizontal target conditions for those. So if there's if those lines exist, just do a mountable curb. Otherwise, do like a barrier curb and draw the sidewalk kind of thing. So here I'll just select driveway. And for these, I'll select, I'll target those driveway lines are on a driveway layer. So we'll go ahead. Actually, I'll go ahead and be a little bit more specific. So the left-hand side ones target the left, right-hand side ones target the right. And I'll just finish up the rest here. So the boulevard targets alignments on that have the boulevard style. So I have some assemblies that belong to the full road. And I also have some assemblies that belong to the curb return. And I'll assign them boulevard curb return style. And finally, right away. And that's going to target feature lines that have the style right away, actually. There we go. So go ahead and select all that and go with that. Actually, I'll do it for the curb return as well. Okay, so basically very quickly, I set up the targets, all sorts of targets for many sub-assemblies. I set up the targets for the lane, the intersection, the driveway, boulevard, and the right-of-way. And here I'll just go apply. It's showing me that I set 98 targets all in one shot, and I'll just update the corridor to reflect that. Okay. All right, so yeah, you can see that it's done it all at the same time. So the lane is following the lane offset target. We're cutting the driveway where we need to. The boulevard, the edge of the outside edge of the sidewalk is where it's supposed to be. And the last little sort of slope within or lane slope, or the generic width and slope one, that's sort of targeting the right of way. Okay, so that's takes care of targeting really quickly. It has all sorts of filter options that the out-of-the-box tool doesn't have. And I think you'll find that very useful. Now, how about splitting up the corridor and re-merging them? Because that can be an issue sometimes. It's a little, it's out of the box. You basically have to recreate a second corridor and set it all up. But in this case, I'll just select this corridor. And, corridor splitter. Select the corridor. And enter. So everything, all these regions belong to one corridor. All these baselines, I should say, belong to one corridor right now. But maybe I want to split off the Second Avenue one. I'll just split it off into a second corridor. I'll call that one Second Avenue corridor, and I'll rename the main one to Main Street. Okay. So I'll go ahead and split that into two. It's going to give me a little summary. All right, now that's pretty easy. So this corridor is on its own now, and this piece is on its own now. What's more than that, it's also splitting up the surfaces that belong to the corridor, like the top and datum surfaces by itself as well. That's all taken care of. If you want to merge it back together, it's just as easy. I'll just use a corridor merger tool. And that should pop up, and select 2 or more corridors to merge. So I'll just select that one and select that one. Whoops, I think I selected the surface the first time around. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna merge them. I'll delete the 2 split corridor existing corridors. Go ahead and I'll just choose to merge the surfaces for them as well and finish. Okay, so there we go. It's all in one corridor and one surface. So different reasons you might want to split up corridors and rejoin them. Typically, when you do design, it can be a little bit easier if you have everything in one corridor sometimes. Other times you might want to split them up to do quantities separately for this item and that item. It just makes it a lot easier to do that. Okay, so one last tool that we're going to talk about is Autograder. So how are we doing for time? Oh yeah, we're kind of tight, but I think we're still okay. So let's go with the Autograder. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and sort of, I have 2 scenarios at commercial site that we looked at earlier. This time, let's take a look at a subdivision. So a stand out of the box grading tool, you can set up grading sets, right? So you can basically go through different steps. For the first step, I want to do this. You know, let's say I want to do relative elevation at this slope, that kind of thing. You can set it up so you can do specific tasks very quickly just by running it one after the other. Now, it takes this Autograder takes that concept and pushes it even further. So not only are you setting up different rules, so let's take a look at this. So I have a bunch of rules set up here. Let's take a look at the subdivision pond one. So essentially that one is going to, looks like I'm gonna have to fix that up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and edit that. Your starting point is always gonna be the parent. So it's gonna go inwards because for a closed shape, that's the easiest way to do it. It's gonna go inwards and do a 3-to-1 slope at 4-meter distance. And then there's gonna be a little bit of a bench, and then it's gonna slope down again at 3-to-1 at another 4. Now this one, the starting point of the last segment was set wrong, so let me just correct that. There we go. So now it's going to go from parent to slope to bench to slope 2. Instead of slope copy, I'll just put a slope 2 on there. So you do get a preview. Makes it really easy to sort of get a feel for what's going to happen. So each one of these will be grading tool or grading rules, right? And the out of box tool. And maybe each one is defined sort of in order as a sort of grading set, but you still have to run them one after the other. But here we can just run it all at once. So I'll go ahead and save and close the settings and then run that. So it's going to start from the outside line and it's going to basically just run that grading. There we go. And generate the surface at the same time. So let's take a look. There we go. So pretty quick way to do parallel grading, which the out-of-box tools can do. Now, what's even more interesting is you don't have to stick with parallel grading, sort of concentric grading. So essentially out of the box tool, you're doing offset gradings, right? But you can do perpendicular gradings. So what do I mean? Let's go ahead and run the Autograder again. And we're gonna run, so let's say we have these right-of-ways and we have this area that we haven't done sort of development yet, and we're gonna cut new lots, new parcels. We can do that. So let's go with the new lots rule set and edit this grading family. Those rule sets are called grading families. So here, the first step is I'm going to choose what the parent feature lines are. Basically, where are you going to grade from? And that I'm going to just choose in the drawing. I can use a filter or just manually select them. It's going to be those two right-of-way lines. Now, how does it know when to create a lot line going across, like the side lot lines? Well, that's taken care of by stations. So I'll just clear out what I have now. Let's just clear those out. So I can add individual stations if I wanted to. So basically from the starting point, I can put an individual station, maybe at the 20-meter mark and 45-meter mark, whatever it is I want to do. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just, oh, sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and just do an interval, 25-meter interval on these. Each column represents each line, right? A different right-of-way line. I'm going to make it 25 and 25 intervals. Just going to fill it until it runs out of room, basically, at the end of the line. Okay, and the rules are been already set a little bit, so I'm not going to adjust them too much. Basically, going from the parent, it's going to go up a bit, and then down a bit, and then right to the back of the lot. So I'll save that. I'll run that. And it's going to do, so not only does it do multiple sort of gradings, it's also doing sort of, it's branching off from multiple starting points as well, right? This right-of-way line and that right-of-way line. So it might take a little bit of cleanup work. For example, I notice end here, so I might get rid of those two end feature lines, but really most of the work is automatically done. I don't have to stick with I don't have to stick with just generating new lines. I can take existing feature lines if I already have them and regrade those. So I'll quickly run that. Okay, so here I'm going to go with, I do have a few different types. I'm going to do the lookout lot lines for this example. So let's take a look at that. It's going to be by filter. You just double check the setting. I'm just going to click on that line, just grab that layer name. There we go. And it's going to have a very simple rule. Just go 10 meters at 5% and then drop it down 1 meter for the next 15. And then the rest of it's just going to meet up at the back of the lot kind of thing. So instead of creating new lines by stations, we're going to go with grade existing. And that's going to be sort of filtered. That's going to be sort of selected like that. Oh, sorry. I picked the wrong thing. So the parent feature line should have been the right-of-way. Okay, that's my bad. And it's really the existing grade line. That's the side lot lines over here. Okay. Now it's set up right. I'll save and close that and run the perpendicular sort of grading. So it's just going to take the existing lines and grade it that way. And I think I'm going to have time to show you just one more quick thing after this is done. And that's building path. So that graded all these yellow lines. that are there. Now, one last thing is, what if we want to automatically grade some building pads onto that? I have some templates over here. The templates are nothing other than just a feature line drawn with the grade set the way I want it, so with the dimensions that I want. So let's go ahead and run those. So that's a third type of grading that I can do. So Autograder, I'm going to choose Lookout Pads. Select the object. That's going to be my template. Select the base point of that object. So I'll just pick the top middle point here. How far it's going to be from the right of way. And then elevations. So right now I have it set to, well, from the highest point of adjacent feature. So there's a side lot line there, side line there. Take the highest one, highest point. That applies where that that pad is positioned, and just go half a meter up from that. That's a setting. Okay, let me just quickly check the feature line. Yep, that's fine. So that's a parent feature line. We're going to go from that right away and calculate things from there. And we'll just go save and run the pads. Okay, so it is generating the gradings for all those lots, and it should finish up pretty quick. Okay, so that's it. Now, I'll stop my demo there. Probably could have gone on, but I do see that we have one question so far. Can the blocks in Label Genie be selected from an XREF? Yes, it can. So when I run the Label Genie, you know, it has this option to include external references. And when I am picking the anchor object, basically the objects that the labels are going to go on, all I need to do is just make sure I know what layer that I want to affect in the XREF drawing. So that's all I need to do, and it will basically grab that. So I know in an XREF, when you click on it, it just gives you the layer of the XREF itself. So you might have to do like an XList command, but as long as you know which layer it's sitting in, you can easily do that through the XREF. Okay. So I don't see any other questions for the moment, but I'll pass it back to Patrick to take any more questions if there are, or for the close.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, well, I guess we'll hang on for a couple seconds here to see if there are any other questions.
Yeah. Just type it in the chat. If you don't have any questions, I highly encourage you to just download a trial. You know, you can get a free trial. If you already previously tried a trial and it already ran out, and you're having trouble getting it back up and running, just contact us and we'll help you work through that.
Absolutely.
If you want a second kick at it, yeah.
The other thing to mention here too is presentations like Jay just did, as well as previous CTC webinars that we have run, are all available on our SolidCAD YouTube page. After the call, for those who attended this session, you'll get a copy of this video as well. So if you ever wanted to do some more digging or learn a little bit more about the products or some of the other offerings that SolidCAD does provide, our YouTube channel is a great resource for that. So. Jay, it doesn't look like we got any other questions for today's session, so I think we will wrap it there. Thank you, everybody who attended. I just want to make a note that we do have another session next week that is around the CTC toolset again. It's called 10 Ways to Speed Up Your Site Grading with Autograder. So be sure to check out our website for that upcoming session as well. But for Jay, thank you very much for attending. My name is Patrick Rennie again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much.